Windows 11 has a new feature called Recall, which records everything you do on your PC and lets you search through your activities. Well, our cybersecurity expert, Dave Hatter, is here with some privacy concerns, as usual. Dave, good morning. Good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Sheila. Yeah, shocker. I'm concerned about the privacy.
So
right?
let's start off with the positives of this. Microsoft bills it as something convenient, that Recall can help users keep track of things and keep organized. Is there anything positive about it?
Yeah, I think there is, Sheila. Now, it hasn't rolled out fully yet, and it's only going to be available on certain PCs. You got to have Windows 11 plus a Copilot Plus PC. Not every PC can support this feature, but the idea in principle kind of makes sense to me. Who hasn't used a computer and forgot a website that they visited and would like to go back to, or can't find a document they worked on? And the idea of Recall is every so many seconds, it takes a snapshot of what you're doing, it converts that to text, it stores it in a database, and then creates a visual timeline, depending on how much storage you have, for around 3 months, so you can easily go back and find things. So again, in principle, I'm not necessarily against it. I could see where it could be handy. It's unfortunately how they've implemented it, and some security flaws that have already been pointed out by some experts that make me have some pretty serious concerns about this as it currently stands.
Yeah, so let's get into those. So Microsoft says that none of your data will be sent to their servers, but of course it's going to be staying there on your computer. So what are some of your concerns about this?
So I think that's a good thing, Sheila, because in theory, as long as it's secured on your computer, Microsoft doesn't have access to it. They can't sell it to someone else. But here's where the problem begins. Now, Windows comes with an encryption software product called BitLocker. So in theory, your data is encrypted, but if someone has access to that PC, they can essentially they can get to the database that stores the data. I'm trying not to get too nerdy on you here. And at that point, you have the screenshots that potentially contain things like passwords, credit card numbers, anything that you've ever entered while it's running. And as researchers have shown, with some fairly simple scripting, you can extract that database and then have access to everything that's in it. So if a hacker could get access to your PC, let's say you click on a phishing link or something and they download some kind of software, or you have administrator access to your PC under your normal account, which most people do, it really then becomes pretty trivial for the bad guys to get that whole database, all the screenshots that it's taken, and then again, potentially have access to incredibly sensitive information, perhaps work information, legal documents, whatever else you've been doing on that PC. And that's the real concern I and most other people who've raised concerns about this have, is the way it's currently implemented leaves a lot to be desired in my mind.
How is this different from all the things we already store on our computers and our phones now?
Well, because it's running constantly and it's automatically snapshotting things. Now, again, without getting too nerdy on you, when you visit a website, that's going to be at least temporarily stored, but you can clear the cache, you can clear the history, you can configure your browser not to store that kind of stuff. If you just view something and you don't save it, it's going to be there on a temporary basis, but it'll eventually go away. This, because of the nature of the way it works, is essentially capturing everything you're doing and storing it for at least some period of time. Again, you go visit a website, you log into your bank, for example, Sheila, and your username and password, it's captured that the way it currently works.
That makes it a little bit scarier when you start talking about money.
Yes.
So what should people do?
Yeah.
Is there a way of turning it off?
There is. Good question. Now, first off, you're not obligated at this point. Now, Windows 10 is going to hit end of life here soon, and you're eventually going to be forced to Windows 11. This isn't supported on every PC. It's probably going to be a couple of years maybe before it would be fully supported on every PC. You can turn it off. It does have some capabilities to limit what it's capturing, but that requires a little bit more technical savvy to say, well, I don't want to capture when I visit this website or when I go to this folder. So it does have some capability to limit the amount of data it collects, but you got to understand that. And you can't turn it off. My advice to people is I certainly would not use this today. I'm hoping Microsoft is going to hear the concerns that are being raised and address them, at which point, then it might be a more viable feature. But I won't be using it anytime soon. I can tell you that,
And
Sheila.
they have some time to do that since they're not rolling it all out completely. Dave Hatter, as always, thank you so much for the good info.
From breaking news to feel-good stories, Local 12 has it all. Tap subscribe and hit the links to find out more.